We are live. I am live with my friend Jill today. And as you know, every Monday we have gone live and chatted with women from around the world. And our purpose was to kind of remind each other that we are valuable right now, where we are in this moment, wherever we are. And we've been honored to chat with women from around the world where we can hear their stories and step into their story and find ourselves somewhere in that story and just know that right now we matter. And today I'm so excited. We have Jill Wyckoff to chat with, and Jill is a creative, and I'm going to let her describe what she does in her own words in a minute. But first, Jill, hello. How are you? Thank
Hi.
you.
Cheers. I have my coffee. It's very early. I have my coffee. Cheers to you and everyone who's out there.
I'm excited. Jill, before we begin with what you do, tell us, what are you grateful for?
Oh gosh, I'm grateful for every day that I'm breathing. I really am. I'm grateful for the people that God has placed in my family and the people that God has placed around me, and for the adventure that I get to walk out, and so much more. But we'll clip it at that,
We'll put at that.
because I could go on forever on that one.
Before we chatted, before we came live, I was so excited just chatting you about what you're doing and where you're going. And I was reminded that I met you when you were teaching a finger painting class. And so a restorative finger painting class, but I'll let you explain that. Will you tell our audience what it is you do? Because it's so exciting and there's so much healing involved in the specifics of what you do. Tell us what you do.
Yeah. So I discovered figure painting about 7 years ago. I was one of those people, I was like a frustrated closet artist. I like to doodle at home. I like to do all this fun stuff, but God forbid that I should show anybody what I do, right? And long story short, I discovered that I could finger paint, and I discovered the beauty of abstract, which is painting more what you feel rather than what you see. And I thought, oh, this I can do, right? Because nobody knows what a feeling looks like. So I can't screw it up. And I just found so much freedom in doing that. And then someone called me out to do it in public. And I went, oh, no. I don't do anything in public. I don't paint in front of people. I don't talk in front of people. Isn't that funny how our life goes? And so that started a journey for me that really involved all things creative. And my husband also is very creative. He writes, as do I. And we started to gather people, creatives together. So we started first to gather writers together. And we started with 5, and then it kept blowing up. And people discovered, like, oh, there are people like me who want to write. And that became Kingdom Writers Association. And just recently, we started a nonprofit called Kingdom Creativity International, where we gather more than just the writers, where we really want to pour into creatives. We believe that everybody's creative. And we believe that a lot of people say, oh, I can't do that. I'm not creative. And we talk about that. And we just help people discover themselves to a greater degree. And but all things creative, and it's a blast. It's a blast to see people go, oh my gosh, like, I have this, I can do this. And so that's basically what we do. So personally, I write, I paint, I doodle, I dabble. And but my favorite thing is actually encouraging others to do that, to step into what they love to do.
Can anyone create?
Everyone can create, and this is my thoughts on that. So when I started finger painting, the reason I didn't create, I was a kind of a closet creator, and then I kind of stopped, and I'm like, I can't do anything like anybody else. I actually discovered more from finger painting because of my fingerprints. And so this is why I think everybody can create. I believe we were all created by a master creator. And we were formed in his image and likeness. Creativity's in our DNA. It is in our DNA. And just as we all have unique fingerprints, we all have unique expressions to create. So the problem comes when we compare. How can we possibly compare. We were designed for diversity. We were designed for diversity. Our very fingerprints, our DNA, speaks to that, right? It confirms that there's no two people alike. So why do we say, I have to look like that in my creative expression, or I'm not any good? I just don't think that is. I believe that we all have a voice, be it visual, whether we're dancing it out, baking it out, writing it out, painting it out. We all have a voice, a creative voice. We have to discover what that looks like in us and be willing to express it. And if we don't express it, that voice will never be seen or heard on the face of the earth, because it can't be heard or seen by anyone else but you. We're so unique. And I think that people, two things they do is they compare, which, as I said, we were designed for diversity. We're designed to stand out, not to fit in. We're designed to be different. That is in our scientific design, our spiritual design. It's everything. We are completely unique. So we compare, and that kills it, right? You just go, oh, I can't do it because mine doesn't look like hers. And I think that's one reason why people don't create. I think another reason is they put creativity in a box. It has to be a painting. It has to be dancing. It has to be writing. And I think there's so much more than that. I mean, I know people who bake. I know people who invent. I know people who are master strategists in business. They're entrepreneurial. It's just we create in so many areas that people overlook. And so don't underestimate the way you create. And I believe absolutely everyone is creative. It's just a matter of finding out what your expression is, which, by the way, I don't believe is about becoming someone else. I believe it's about discovering what you already have, discovering a part of who you already are that's always been in there. Painting, writing, the things that I do. I love to dance too. I may not be a professional dancer, but I love to dance, and I love to paint and dance at the same time. It's always been in me. I just had to discover that. And I believe that's the course of every person if they're entering a creative journey. It's discovery.
I love that. So you have a story, Jill, and I know we don't have time to go into that deeply, but will you tell us a little bit of your journey to get to this place of finding the creative outlet and then also teaching it to others? Because there's so much healing in that and so much finding purpose in that. But will you tell us a little bit of your journey, how you got here?
Yeah, I actually did write about it in a tiny little book called Once Upon a Backpack. It's a creative nonfiction. And so I was, like a lot of people, right? You go through a lot of crap in life, right? I was one of those people who went through a lot of devastating situations, made a lot of really, really, really bad choices. And it took me down a very, very dark path. And I was drawn out of that by a decision that I made to walk in a godly way. But it was a long course for me. And then I discovered, as I said, about 7 years ago, I discovered that I could finger paint. So when I was a kid, I used to create all the time. And then I talked myself out of it and thought I was no good and whatnot. And I was a single parent for many years. I experienced a lot of different things and had a lot of stuff built up, a lot of garbage in here. When I discovered that I could finger paint, especially abstract, I could stand in front of a blank canvas and not have an agenda. That was so freeing to me. Like, oh my gosh, I don't have to know the outcome. I don't even have to control the outcome. If I feel like painting blue, I can just slap my hands in blue and paint blue. You know what I mean? I could just paint a feeling, paint what I was feeling at the time. And I found that so freeing. And as I was doing that, I discovered more about, as I said, about my DNA and about my purpose. I discovered more about my identity. So I feel like the Holy Spirit really taught me so much through my creative expression. And then I was drawn out. So I was very happy to be tucked away, hidden, not seen, and all of that. And then a friend of mine, Henry Haney, some of you may know, said, "Hey, Jill, you got to paint in public. You got to paint at my worship event." And I'm like, "No way, I don't do that." And he kept pushing, and I felt like the spirit kept going, "Oh, do it, do it." And I was like, "All right." So I went at like 2 a.m., hunkered down, like, I'm not showing anybody this.
Yeah.
And it didn't kill me. It didn't kill me. I found that I could do it afraid, but the
Mm,
idea was just do it. And people came up to me, even in my abstract paintings, and said, "Oh, I had a vision of that." Or, "Oh,
mhm,
I see angels in there." And they were touched and they were moved. And I was like, "What the heck is happening?" And I started to discover how much the creator works through creativity. He
mm,
reaches people, he touches people in different ways. And I
mhm,
started to see as I stepped in more, completely afraid, but I
mhm,
started, the door started opening and I started stepping through. So I started painting in public. I I went to Austria and painted. I went to these different places and painted, and people started to be touched and healed. Um, Probably my favorite one was a lady in Austria who I had painted in a park,
mm,
and she said, "I must have that painting." An elderly woman, "I must have that painting. That painting is for me." Well, her
mm,
father had been a Nazi and had done unspeakable things to the Jews. And she had carried the weight and the trauma and the guilt and the shame of what her father had done her whole life, and it manifested in illness and depression. Well, I had painted her healing. I
mm,
had not known that. Long story
mhm,
short, I painted her healing. This was an
mhm,
abstract painting of a woman who'd been traumatized her whole life by what her father, a Nazi, had done to the Jews. And what she didn't know is, I am a Jew.
mm,
I'm a Jew. I'm a
mhm,
Christian by my choice, but
mhm,
my family, my heritage are Jewish. And you just think, that just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, you can't
mhm,
make this stuff up. And I
mhm.
started seeing more and more of how God like used creativity to touch the hearts of people and to bring healing and restoration. And
Mm,
once I learned that, I couldn't shut up about it. You know,
yeah,
and I just it was actually more important to me to tell others what they had and to help
mhm,
them like to discover that and to walk in that.
yeah,
And that's what I that is my bliss. That is my bliss to see somebody else go, "Oh, look what happened." And I have a testimony now of the
yeah,
goodness of the creator who works through my creativity. And
yeah,
it's amazing. It's amazing. It just never gets old.
yeah. Well, you touched on something, and I want to see if I can figure out how I want to ask this, but you touched on something about trauma. This lady was healed of trauma because of your painting. And it's interesting because I think my first step in healing from trauma wasn't actually my trauma therapy. Looking back, I think it was actually perhaps your workshop and then the other workshop that we talked about that we were at,
Yeah.
the healing art workshop that we went to.
Yes.
Can you summarize the healing from trauma through art in any capacity? What have you seen? What does that mean to you? Maybe what have you experienced in your own life?
Right, right. So for me, that's it completely changed the way I felt about myself.
Mm,
As I felt there's something spiritual that happens when you are just in this immersed in creativity.
mm,
There's like a spiritual connection with the one
mm,
um, who created you to create. There's a spiritual connection, and you get these. For me, I got these revelations. Like I said about like my fingerprints, like how unique I am. I started looking at DNA and how incredibly we're designed, and I just it took me on this course of discovery. But I really feel like I was hearing from the Holy Spirit
mhm,
as I was creating. And that to me is how it's really the power of God and the power of you in
mhm,
collaboration, and whatever you express is actually becomes a part of that expression, if that makes sense
mhm.
at all. I'm trying to put in words that make sense, but So when I painting with the Holy Spirit, right? So me and God, like, yeah, let's just do this, playing and paint. If I'm feeling complete joy in the painting, and I flip it around and you see it, you might feel that same thing because it carries the essence of that. If I'm painting, I was once painting in a very chaotic environment, and I just felt like painting this. It was like a lot of blues and a lot of peace. And my husband was pulling his chair up closer and closer to me, and afterwards he said, "It was like you created a bubble for me. This whole atmosphere was chaotic, and I felt when I pulled." And he wasn't even knowing, or he wasn't even aware of what I was painting, but it shifted the atmosphere. And that's what happens when we create with the Holy Spirit, the one who created us to create. It just opens up doors to discover who you are, and then to share that with other people. And so that probably is a long way of saying that God works through this stuff. And I don't really know exactly all of the ins and the outs, but he just does. And it always amazes me, and does bring healing. And there is such a thing as art therapy, right? That's been it's been around for a long time. And it's just something about, and art breaks down the walls. It breaks down barriers. Art is it's an international language, right? It's a language that everybody can speak.
Absolutely. And I know sometimes we don't have words to put to what we're feeling. And that's kind of where the art brings those feelings out.
Yes, you can just work it out. That's why I do love painting, because you can do layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and it shifts, and it changes. And you just, if you release the bent that we sometimes have to control the outcome, and just enjoy being in the flow, you'll get a lot more out of it. I think, at least I get a lot more out of it by releasing control and just saying, okay, I'm just going to have fun. I'm just playing, and I'm expressing, even in my doodling. It's like, okay, I'm doodling, and today there's all hard lines, because today I'm feeling all hard lines. And that kind of thing. Like, even a doodle is creative. Even a doodle can carry a healing quality to it. It's amazing.
And it's so neat you said that, because so many of us grew up being a certain kind of learner. And I'm talking about myself and some of my friends. Maybe a little ADHD. We learn through pictures. We don't necessarily learn through auditory, through the teacher lecturing. And we were doodlers. That meant we doodled as we listened, and that helped us learn because we were doodling. So to hear that doodles are creative, or art, and how many people have gone on to be doodle artists now, or
and I doodle like geometric stuff. I don't do anything that looks like anything. I have, but mostly I just doodle these geometric kind of swirly lines. Zentangles. Look up Zentangles. Zentangles. You can look them up online on just YouTube. Just draw these little lines. When you're creating, you can't be anxious. You can't be anxious. You can't be like, it's just, I'm just working things out, and I'm just at peace. I'm just using my hands, I'm using my mind. I'm using my heart, and I'm just, and I no expectations for the outcome. Just enjoy the process.
We have only a little bit of time, so I want to touch on your book, because this is really exciting, and I believe you're writing it right now. So tell us about the book you're writing, the title, and why.
Okay, I'm writing a book called Supernatural Creativity, and it's creating with God for restorative impact. And I've been walking, as I said, I've been walking this journey, discovering who I am and helping others discover who they are through creativity, and discovering so much more about themselves, even beyond their creative expressions, offloading junk that they've held on, just offloading lies and stepping into the truth of who they are and discovering more of who they are through creativity. And so I'm writing this book for those who think, do I have it? Like, I think I have something creative. I feel like I do, but maybe mine doesn't look like theirs. And how does this even work? And where do I start? And what does this journey look like? And so, for anybody who is wondering how to step into this creative journey and seeing their own healing and the testimonies of healings for others, this will be a book for them, and it's going to be fun. So it's going to have foundations, it's going to have exercises, it's going to have my doodles and my finger paintings and my poetry, and it'll be visual, and it will be informational, and it will be fun. And it'll be funny because I like to be a little bit funny. So that's what I'm writing right now. Supernatural creativity, hopefully coming out maybe springtime.
Okay. And where can we find that if we're looking for, in fact, not just where can we find the book, where can we find your workshops, your everything that you're doing? Where can we find you?
Okay, so books are on Amazon. My first book is on Amazon, and this next book will be on Amazon. JillWyckoff.com is me. KingdomCreativityInternational.com is our nonprofit, and KingdomWritersAssociation.com is our writers group, which is growing actually around the country. We're having chapters now popping up around the country. Really pressing in for the writers to write the books and the blogs and the screenplays and the stage plays and all of that. So we're coming around them and just lifting their arms and encouraging, equipping, and empowering them. So I think you'll find everything if you go to JillWyckoff.com, but that's kind of the long and short of it.
Okay. And are you still doing the workshops that you did a conference? Are you still doing the conferences where you bring in speakers?
Yeah, we've done a number of conferences. COVID's kind of squashed that for now. And I do retreats and workshops, and doing them safe distancing, trying to do the whole safe distancing thing. But yes, still forwarding all of that.
Good. Yeah, I'm so excited. Okay.
Thank you.
I want to end with you giving a word to the woman listening right now. Will you give us a word, whatever that might be right now, for all the women listening and the women who are going to be listening in the future?
Yes. So, I think my biggest passion in life is to tell people how wonderful they are, and pour into people's identity, because everything starts with identity. It starts with knowing who you are and what you carry, and that your voice matters. And that's what I would love to tell you. If I'm looking at you face to face, I would say your voice matters. What you have to release in this world is so important, because if you don't, no one else will, because no one is like you. And so we need to see you, and we need to hear you, and you need to shine your light, whatever that looks like. And my prayer is that you'll discover that you'll walk that out, and that you'll discover who you were created to be. It's not about becoming someone different. It's about discovering who you are and then shining that light so bright. And I pray that you have revelation for who you are and what you carry, and what you're meant to do in this world, because you have an assignment and you have a calling and you have a destiny. And I pray that you discover it and walk it out, even if you have to walk it out afraid. Do it afraid, but do it. And you'll discover more about yourself than you ever knew was possible, and you'll be walking in your bliss.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. Thank you for chatting with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for bringing hope and life and love to the listeners today. And I want to say thank you for everyone listening, and for our viewers who are listening in the future. We won't be back next Monday. We will be back in the future, possibly in 6 weeks when we figure out a time. But Jill, we get to end with you on this gift of hope and creativity. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course.